Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Magic with Zuby. My name is Zuby, and if you're brand new to this show's all about a little known card game called Magic the Gathering. On today's episode, we brought on none other than the Commander Advisory Group's own Jim Lapage. We came on and talked a hell of a lot about Magic, a lot about EDH, and a little known game called Legend of Zelda. If you've noticed in my background, my wife got me the Master Sword. Hold on. I'm going to get this shit. Here. All right. So if you are watching or listening to this, I'm sorry you can't see this, but I'll get to the announcements and all that stuff, and we'll get to the interview with Jim in a second here. But look how badass this sword is. So the thing I want to showcase is look at the inscription. It's got the Triforce and a whole bunch of letters, runes on it. Dude, this thing's sharp as hell. I love this sword though. Holy shit. She went all out for me on getting me this. This is heavy as hell too. It's not a light replica or anything like that. Oh shit. I guess I'm gonna hold on to it because I don't want to get up again. But anyways, we talked a lot about Legend of Zelda too. So look forward to that. But before we begin our interview here, if you want to help support the show, you can help support the show on Patreon at patreon.com/magicwithzuby. You can reach out to me via Twitter at magicwithzuby, on Instagram at magic_with_zuby, on TikTok at mtgzuby, and you can email me with any questions you may have at mtgzuby@gmail.com. We are always sponsored by the awesome, great, and amazing Cardsphere. Cardsphere is the place to buy, sell, and trade your Magic singles and sealed product. And yeah, I think that about does it for all the announcements. So without further ado, please help me welcome Jim to the show. Boom. Okay, we start again. All right, it's Zuby here, and I've got with me Jim from the Spike Feeders and also from the Commander Advisory Group. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Zuby. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing. Cannot wait. So as of this recording, I'm only a couple days away from my 2-week vacation. And
hype.
Oh, I cannot wait. I've not only got my 12-hour EDH stream coming up this Saturday, but also just going to be hell of a lot of being lazy.
12 hours is a lot. Have you ever done a 12-hour stream before?
No, the most I've done is a 5-hour stream, and that was I was exhausted.
That was what, 3 games?
Something like that, probably.
3 games. I find, at least with our content, at least, the quality drops off so much after game 3 when people start getting tired. Because Magic's hard.
It is. It is. It's
even when you're just scooping around, it's hard. It's mentally taxing.
I can probably tell towards the end of the day, I'm probably going to be playing all my simple EDH decks, the decks I don't have to think about. I'll just probably play a lot of tribal elves where I just swing. You guys figure out the math.
Sequencing. No sequencing. Turn it sideways. Let them sort it out.
Yeah. The stack, I don't know what that is.
Yeah, exactly.
So thanks for coming on, man. So we were briefly talking about all the awesomeness of Magic Twitter and just the overall discourse. But so this is going to come out this is going to come out 2 weeks from now as we're recording. So who knows what new discourse will pop up since then.
I think we could talk about it in generic terms, and people would be like, "Wow, Zuby, you're on the ball with talking about the discourse today."
Right. It'll probably.
It's always something, It's always something.
It is. Oh my gosh, and it's gotten to the point where I'm just I can't even keep up with it. The whole the whole Sheldon's article that came out, was it yesterday or the day before?
There were two.
Well, the his most recent one about the 5 things.
That was on Monday. It was supposed to go out on Sunday, but it went out on Monday instead.
Yeah, so that whole article, I thought it was really well written. It made a lot of sense. But apparently there's been a lot of discourse over it, and it's fun. I saw your tweet today, and how you just need to step away from Twitter, and I briefly told you I don't even know what the hell the discourse is a lot of times because I guess I've muted or blocked people or just. I don't know.
Yeah, you've made good life choices is what you've done.
I guess, or I just completely ignore it, or I don't know.
Yeah, I'm getting there myself. I want to remain available for people to talk to about this kind of stuff. But I think that it's not particularly productive for me, at least. It may be for other people, but I don't get a lot out of it about arguing online. I'm a recovering chronic online arguer.
Oh, I know
And
what
it's
you
easy to
mean.
get
Yeah.
sucked into this stuff.
Oh
Like
my gosh, yes.
yesterday, it just killed my entire day. Like I got nothing done at work, and like it just killed my entire day. I just wasn't in a mood to do anything, and by 8 o'clock in the evening, I'm just like, I'm beat. And then I played
Yeah.
Link to the Past until 10 o'clock, and then I passed out.
Ooh, yeah, we're gonna definitely have to bring up Zelda because I don't know if you saw my tweet, but if you see behind me, my wife got me a Master Sword. Like,
Is that
like
the one of the replica ones?
I don't. She got it from
Oh,
some like sword maker online, and it's like legit. It's heavy as fuck. It's
I think I know the one you're talking about. One of
yeah.
my YouTubers that I follow like did a review on it, and like if it's the one I'm thinking about, it's nice.
It's super nice and it's heavy. Like it feels like oh shit. Like I could train with this thing. But we'll get into that. But as far as like the EDH discourse goes, so you primarily came on the scene with competitive EDH, correct?
Yeah, kind of. Like I would say that that's an accurate perception. If you were like an average person and said that, I would say, yeah, that's like a reasonable description. I would probably spin it a little bit and say that we kind of just played whatever we wanted. Like the origin behind my channel, or our channel, I should say, is that we wanted to show people that like the social side of the format didn't go away when you played more powerful decks, because that was the discourse at the time, was that you're either playing fun
Yeah.
magic or you're playing CDH. And it was this like dichotomy that I've never really believed in. And so I wanted to show people, well, like that's not what my play group is like. Like we play all of these high-powered decks, but we have fun. Like we're laughing. We're playing in my basement. Nobody's making the pro tour. And like it's beer and pretzels in my basement too, you
Yeah.
know? So what we wanted to show people, like we started out doing 10 episode seasons, and we would do 7 competitive episodes, 2 casual episodes, and then one like themed finale episode. Because that was about the split that we would play in our group. We'd play a lot more high power stuff, but then every once in a while we'd be like, well, let's just play the goofy stuff. It's like you say, at the end of your 10-hour stream,
Yeah.
sometimes you're not up for that, you know? So we also kind of wanted to show people that you don't have to be one or the other, that you could be both, you know, that it's okay to enjoy both things.
Okay. Okay. No, and you guys have definitely made a name for yourself. Well, you guys have been around for is it 2 years now or 3 years?
It'll be 3 years in August.
August.
I,
Dang, time goes by fast.
yeah, I remember this because actually our first episode, I was recovering from open heart surgery.
Oh, damn.
And like I was just out of the phase where I couldn't use my arms. So it was like as soon as I could shuffle my decks, we were talking about it while I was recovering and in hospital and everything. And we were like planning out all the stuff for the channel. And then like the second that I could use my arms well enough to shuffle my decks, we were filming. And you can actually see in our first episode, I've got a scar from my heart surgery. That's like, actually, I think I'm wearing this shirt. And you can see the top of my scar.
I'll have to check that out because, I mean, admittedly, I haven't seen a lot of your episodes. I know I saw like some of the first ones, but dude, it's like you probably understand this, being in the Magic content game, you just can't get all the time to watch everyone else's stuff. It's like impossible.
Play Magic.
Yeah. It's like
I usually tell people like I don't have time to play Magic. I got to make content about Magic.
right.
You know?
Yeah. I feel like I play more D&D nowadays than actual Magic, and it's like I don't even make D&D content. Once in a while, I'll try to do so, but
I've seen your D&D streams with Pixie, and well, you guys were doing the Ravnica one, weren't you?
yeah. That was the 10th Street Hooligans.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. Oh, I friggin' loved it, but it's I don't know if I would ever do a D&D stream again. It was very nerve-wracking. Just because it's nerve-wracking in the fact that you have to be entertaining while DMing and all that.
Oh.
And it's hard because it's not that I'm not entertaining, it's also, you know, I've got 5 million other things I got to worry about too, like the rules and make sure the plot's progressing and all that stuff. And no one wants to watch, 10, 15 minutes of people looking up rules.
Zuby, you are speaking to my soul right now.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, the CDH community is nothing if not sticklers for the rules. And we've frequently had situations where we're like, oh no, I don't know how this interacts. And then we like go and we cut and we Google something for like 20 minutes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh.
And we're trying to figure out a ruling on card interactions or whatever. And then we come back like nothing happened. But meanwhile, 20 minutes has passed.
Oh, dude, that's happened so many times. Like the past year that I started streaming EDH because thank God for Spell Table and all that.
Oh yeah.
It's you get those people just on the rules and or just the stupid weird interactions that happen. You're just like, I don't know how this fucking works. And it's like, hell, I learned a lot the past year just in little rules. And I've been playing Magic for a long ass time, and it still don't know everything about it.
I remember we just thinking back to like games of D&D that I've played. I remember one particular conversation with our DM where we got into an argument about whether it made sense for like impact damage running into something. You know, when it was a wall, it's based on like the speed or whatever, but when it's like another larger creature, it's based on the HP of the larger creature, and it scales that way. So this was like an earlier version of D&D.
Yeah.
So it got to the point where if you ran into a large creature, depending on how fast you're running, you could just die. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I couldn't run into a wall fast enough to die. I don't think that's in my toolbox, you know? And we had like an hour-long conversation about this. We're pulling up velocity calculators.
Oh, I've done similar stuff where it's in the campaign that we just finished. I had them do this boss fight, right? They were in hell and they had to fight this evil drow queen, and she was flying up in the air, and she was and the way I described her, she was relatively small, you know, like she was still humanoid size but pretty small. And so she was flying up in the air, and the paladin cast banishment, successfully banished her because I burned out all my legendary resistances and I rolled like a nat 1 on the wisdom save. And so she's banished, right? So then the paladin had this idea, all right, I want to put the bag of holding beneath her and open it up wide enough so she'd fall in. So the whole ruling was I was going to allow it, but should I allow her to use gate to get out of the bag of holding? And so then the whole ruling became, and it was like a 1 hour debate of just like, if I allow it, then the players are allowed to teleport in and out of bags of holding. So then they could use that. So I'm like, I had to rule like she dies. That's it. She can't get out unless divine intervention.
And that kind of stuff is totally fine when you're playing at that kitchen table or whatever. Yeah. But like, it's not entertaining for a viewer, right?
If that was on stream, they'd be like, "What? No, that can't happen." I'm like, trust me. Yeah. We Googled the hell out of like, what is actually the dimension space inside a bag of holding?
Yeah. Yeah. like, is it an alternate universe? Is it like an area of this of time space where physics happens differently or whatever?
Yeah. I went deep into it. Like even looking at other games like Pathfinder, like how do they describe bag of holding and all that stuff? Just everything I found, like if I allowed them to teleport in and out, then they could be fighting a boss and then the wizard be like, I'm going to teleport into my bag of holding.
Yeah, true enough. True enough. You kind of got to think about the downstream impacts of that kind of a decision, like beyond just the here and now, right?
Yeah, and then plus, and that brings it full circle to like what you guys have to deal with on the CAG and even the RC, where we were just saying right before we recorded, like you guys got to be careful, like especially if you mention a card, right? Let's say you're looking at the card, I don't know. What's like the worst card you can imagine? Like Cauldron Familiar, right? Let's say you guys are saying like, oh, we're looking at Cauldron Familiar because it's too many people are playing it. And, you know, it's like...
I talk about sometimes. It's like half meme and half not. I talk about Divine Intervention a fair bit. It's an 8-mana sorcery from Legends, I think. And... It's like it enters the battlefield with a couple counters. You remove a counter on upkeep, and then when the last counter gets removed, the game's a draw.
I know that card. Yeah.
I hate this card, and it's not even that like I hate this card. It's that I hate the type of person that trolls people using cards like this. You know, it's just not the type of Magic I want to be involved in.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the same type of player that plays like chaos for the sake of chaos, and like I just want to see how screwed up I can make this game. I'm going to play my Naked Singularity and like screw up everybody's mana sources and stuff like that. And it's like, you know what? Some people get a lot of enjoyment out of that. It is so not for me.
Yeah.
So that's sometimes my meme answer when people ask me what card I want to ban, because a lot of people haven't heard of it, and it's an 8 mana enchantment that's like $180 or something like that.
Well, hey, ramp is real.
Nobody plays.
Ramp
that
is
nobody
real.
plays.
Yeah, no, I know. But it's like it's you guys got to be careful, like just mentioning anything. I would assume, because it could either skyrocket the price, it could, I don't know, not only cause a lot of discourse, but also just, I don't know. It's like, how do you guys deal with that? Like, I assume that when you guys are meeting, you guys are talking about cards and all that stuff. Is there a process? Is that more relegated to the RC, where they would have to be the ones to pick which cards everyone's talking about to like bring to the forefront?
No, not at all. Actually, we have, so the format is a little bit looser, and this is a relatively recent change, like probably since I came on, which was in January of this year. And
really, it's only been January? I thought it was longer.
6 months.
It feels way longer. Holy crap!
I've been talking to Sheldon and a couple of the other people on the CAG, like in a quasi advisory role, just not in like an official capacity, for probably about a year and a half now. But like officially, it's been January of this year.
Oh, I could have swore it was longer.
Yeah, like it used to be, I think, a more formal thing where it was like once a quarter there would be a formal meeting, there'd be an agenda and all that kind of stuff. Now we have like a free-form ongoing chat among the 10 members of the CAG and the 4 members of the Rules Committee. And it's like, if somebody wants to bring something up, they can. So like, you know, when what's the most recent set? Modern Horizons 2.
Yeah.
When that was getting previewed, like when they previewed Grist, I just screen capped Grist and I tossed it in the chat, and I'm like, how does this work, man? You know, like immediately I'm like, this is going to be a problem. We need to make a comment about this, you know?
Oh yeah, dang.
And so it's that kind of thing where it's like something comes up, or like something comes up in the discourse or whatever. If we want the group to see or discuss it, then we'll toss it in the chat and say, hey, what does everybody think about this? Usually if it's something like that Grist one, I'll like add Charlotte and Toby, because they're the best rules people in the room, and be like, let's talk rules, you know? If it's something else, then it might be somebody else that I get involved in that kind of thing if I'm the one initiating that conversation, but it's an ongoing thing. And so one of the things we're trying to do, especially we're coming up to a quarterly one at the end of this month, but one of the things that we're trying to do is spend less time talking and debating during the actual quarterly meeting, and use it just sort of as a general check-in, but hashing out the real like nuts and bolts of everything in between meetings, so that it's not time bound, you know? Because like if a conversation over color identity or whatever is going to take 2 days, then it's going to take 2 days, and we don't want to confine it to the 2.5 hours or whatever that we spend once a quarter together.
Okay. And what are sort of some of the things that do get discussed? Is it the discourse that gets talked about? Is it the certain cards you all are looking at, or what exactly happens in those?
Well, I can tell you that like there's a lot of individual cards that get discussed. And honestly, if I gave you a list, like I'm not going to give you a list, but if I gave you a list,
that's fine.
I don't think any of them would surprise you, you know?
Yeah.
And that's not to say that like they're seriously considered for a ban. They're just ones that people talk about, you know? So they want to get our thoughts on it. Because our role on the CAG is not necessarily just to funnel the information from the community to the Rules Committee. Like we're not just a funnel like that, right?
Yeah.
It's to say, this is what people are talking about, and then this is my take on it, you know? So like I'm listening to people's opinions, I've formed my own, and it's an informed opinion. That's what they want from us, you know? It's that like critical analysis piece of like what would happen. Like you say, like what are the downstream impacts? Like, is this going to force us to do something later down the road? What is that? Is it going to, you know, cause problems with one corner of the community or another? If so, what does that look like? And is it worth it? Since I've come on, like since I came on in the middle of quarantine, like it's still not open up here. Like I'm not even allowed to have people over in my house right now.
Oh, wow.
Like even though I'm fully vaccinated, like as of Monday.
Oh, nice. Congrats.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it, but it's still very much a lockdown here. Things are real bad in Manitoba, but because I got added on in the middle of quarantine, I've kind of been hedging all of my advice, saying like, it's tough for me to know right now whether the online discourse is reflected in. I'm going to put this delicately. Well, I'm not going to put it delicately. I'm going to say like in real life, because the online community sure is something, but it's not always tethered to what the bulk of Commander players think, you know? Um, and I'll give you a quick example here. I can tell you that when the Walking Dead Secret Lairs were previewed in the fall, 95% of people on, particularly on like Reddit and Twitter, responded to a straw poll, and there was like 30,000 people that responded saying like, this is going to be the death of the format. I'm severely and adamantly against this. I'm going to quit EDH over this. Like, that was the magnitude of the reaction. To give myself a little bit of a reality check, I tend to ask people in my social circle that are not particularly plugged into the online discourse.
Yep.
And say like, what do you think about this? And I don't take it as like gospel or whatever.
Yeah.
That's not like the average, casual player out there. But I like to get somebody that hasn't been whipped into a frenzy by these echo chambers to say like, just what's your gut feeling on this, And I brought it to like 3 of my casual play groups, probably 15, 20 people that are generally not plugged in. And they were like, it's fine. I'm not going to buy it, but I don't really care. They were like,
yeah,
they were just the most lukewarm, indifferent reactions,
Yeah, I've got a few friends that I used to play a lot more EDH with, before the whole quarantine and all that. And asked them same thing. Like, some of them just said, "Cool, I can't wait to buy it," or "Oh, okay," just shrug like, "Yeah, cool, I guess."
Because for a lot of people, like, they're not even out there buying every set. So like, what's one more set that they're not going to buy?
Yeah,
it doesn't really affect you.
and like, as good as the cards are, they're not completely must-haves. They're not format breaking. They're not.
Yeah. So like, I don't know. I like to give myself a reality check sometimes, just to be like, hey, just what's your gut reaction? Don't go look it up. Don't Google it or whatever. I'm going to show you this card. What do you think? And that generally puts me on a pretty good path, or at least helps to put the online discourse in context, because I think with something like that, the polarization that exists in the community means that the people that have a negative reaction have an extremely severe negative reaction, and they're very vocal about it. And the people that are indifferent or even positive about some of these changes, like the IP crossovers and stuff like that, they're just not moved to argue with people online about it. Like, if I like the Walking Dead thing, why would I subject myself to being berated on Reddit if it's obvious that they hate it?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so as a result, my voice is not really represented if I'm the person that likes it, So it can be kind of tough because we don't really have any good ways of like collecting hard data about it. And a lot of people assume that any data that they can collect is better than no data. And being a data guy, I can tell you that that's not a thing.
Oh, really?
Like, if you go and poll, like, 100% of the people in my basement are drinking a beer right now, but what does that say about the people in my neighborhood?
Yeah.
It says nothing, right? So, yeah.
It's interesting. It's also something that I've noticed as I've tried to branch out on my content, like especially social media content, is just how vastly different the Magic communities are. Like, you compare Magic communities on Twitter and to like the most popular Magic groups on Facebook, like night and day difference. And just terms of how people react and treat each other. Yep. I mean, not saying Facebook is better than Twitter, but just the discourse there is way different. A lot of times it's a lot of sexist and misogynist shit, but and same goes for like Instagram and TikTok as well too. It's vastly different.
It's way different. I've met some people on TikTok and they actually rock.
Yeah.
Like, I've reached out to a couple. I don't know if you know Beck.
MTG girl, yeah.
Yeah, I met Beck on TikTok. I was just like, she came up on my For You page, And I was just like, oh, that was funny. And I commented on there. I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And she's like, yeah, I play Commander. And I'm like, oh, cool. What do you play? And all that kind of stuff. And we got to
Yeah.
talking. And
Yeah,
then
that's how I
now
met
she's like,
do you know Soul Ring Girl?
yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's how I met her
She's
too.
from Maritimes, Canada. She's so
Oh,
cool.
okay. Yeah, yeah. She was really cool too. That's I met her on there, and then there's a few others. I'd have to look them up, but it's
Yeah, there's like T1 Thoughtseize, Nathan Jones, like the Hermit Druid. He's on there.
yeah,
The TikTok community is like actually pretty funny. It's like a lot of pack cracking, and then a lot
hmm
of like, hey, it's like short observational bits, kind of like the comedy stuff that Pixie does.
yeah.
It's like that, you know.
I know.
It's just
I've
like,
tried telling her like she'd be perfect for it, but
oh, Pixie would be great on TikTok.
she doesn't want to do it. I've tried to like, come on, do it, and she's like, no. I'm like,
She's millennial like us.
right, right. God, it's like, well, we're like at the tail end of the millennial,
Yeah,
like
we're elder millennials.
or boomer millennials. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're causing the downfall of we're gonna be the generation that's like the boomers, how they're fucking everything up. We're gonna be that's gonna be our generation one day.
Oh yeah, just hoard wealth.
Yeah,
Do nothing.
pretty much. Like what is it? Millennials aren't buying houses. We're screwing up the housing market. The avocado toast and whatever the hell else. I don't know.
Oh, how good is avocado toast though? Like real talk. If we can be real for a second.
I don't know if I've ever actually had it. I don't
What?
think I've ever had avocado toast.
That's gonna be the hook for this podcast is gonna be you saying, I don't think I've ever had avocado toast.
I mean, I like avocados, but I mean, like, I'm not like a huge fan of avocados, right? Like, they're good, but I don't go out of my way to eat them. Sort of like bacon. Like, as I've gotten older, I like bacon less and less as I get older. And
you know what's good with bacon? Avocados.
oh yeah, like I've had bacon avocado stuff before, but I just don't know if I've ever had just like plain avocado toast though. Now think about it.
Well, that'll be your homework, your takeaway from tonight's session.
Right. I have to do it somewhere. But oh gosh, where were we going with this? Oh yeah. Just the online communities are different, and then there's Reddit. Though I don't go on Reddit as much as I used to. Like,
Neither do I.
It's I think what I visit Reddit the most for nowadays is more D&D stuff than actual Magic stuff. But even the D&D discourse is starting to get old too, because God, the discourse for D&D just gets tiresome. It's how can we fix
Really?
5th edition? Like, why doesn't Wizards do XYZ with 5th edition? I'm like, oh my God, shut up. It's like,
It's even better when they're relatively uninformed takes too. Like,
yeah. Oh God. And then like the biggest discourse that I've seen just in the RPG community was some D&D content creator made a video about how Pathfinder 2e is dying or something, and the whole Pathfinder community went up in arms and made all these reactionary videos, and I'm all like, who cares? Like,
I know. It's like I see it in Magic too. There's this like commodification of outrage, right? And you can see certain creators do it. I'm not going to name names, but
oh yeah, no, I know who you're talking about.
yeah, but I mean, you can find them if you look. But they're the ones with the most provocative titles, and a lot of the time it works out for them because that's how social media works and whatnot. And engagement is engagement, whether you're making people angry or making people happy. And yeah, I don't know. I do my best to not play into that.
Sometimes it's
incredibly
hard.
destructive. It's really destructive, I think, but it is hard, right?
Like sometimes it's hard. Like and like I said, it's easy to ignore most of the discourse, but then there's something that just hits you, and you're just like, ooh, what's going on? You just gotta like start looking. And it's, I don't know. I think like we as humans, we're just naturally curious as to like what drama's happening,
Yep.
And just,
it's even worse when it's about you.
oh God. Yeah.
Like, have you ever heard that phrase? Like, Twitter has a main character every day, and the goal is to never be the main character.
Oh yeah. I've heard that. It's I'm kind of glad like I haven't been the main character. There was only like the one time, couple years ago, their professor and I got into a little tiff, like I guess it'd be about 4 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it was something over something really dumb. We hashed it out afterwards and all that, but it was like, but I can't imagine like experiencing it on the scale, like maybe like you, Shivam, and other people, like Sheldon especially. God,
I don't know how that man does it. I'm going to be honest with you, because like I get some of it, but nowhere near on the scale. Like there are not 600 comment threads on Reddit calling me an idiot. You know,
like I know there's how many people on the RC, yet he is like the main
4.
one. Yeah, there's 4, and he's like the main one that everyone looks to. That he's the godfather of the format, and the way he carries that mantle is just, I couldn't do it. There's just, because no matter what you say or do, it's just like being in politics. It's like no matter what you say or do, you're wrong.
Well, and so let me give you a little bit of insight into what I go through in an average day when I'm talking to people about the format. One of the toughest things for me is that you often get groups of people asking you for the polar opposite thing. And often the opposite thing is exclusive of the other thing, right? So like one group wants you to ban Hullbreacher and the other group doesn't want you to ban Hullbreacher because they love it, right? So you've got 2 groups of people coming to you saying, please do this. And then you've got another group saying, don't do this. And so like it can be pretty tough because they can both make pretty compelling arguments. And a lot of the time they don't realize, like, and again, this kind of plays into social media, but you know, often people will talk to other people because we kind of self-select into our own play groups. People tend to talk to people that are very similar to them most often about Magic, right? Like the people that I talk to the most often are the other Spike Feeders. There's 6 of us. We tend to skew a little bit more powerful. We've got our own unique take on the format, right? But that shapes my view of the format, and I have to be really careful to not project that on the format as a whole, and you know, assume that my opinion is the prevailing opinion. You know, because it might be, but it's probably not. So it's kind of tough because when people come to me, they'll say like, you know, everybody hates Hullbreacher and it should be banned, and I'm like, well, that's not true, but nobody wants to hear that, you know. It might be true that a lot of people hate Hullbreacher, and it might be true that you talk to a lot of people that hate Hullbreacher, but that's not the whole story. Like I've honestly, I'm going to be honest with you, I've had people contact me to ask me to unban the Moxen only, not Black Lotus, not Time Walk, any of the other Power 9, just the Moxen. Which I don't personally agree with, but like, for every possible position that you could possibly take on the format, there is somebody that wants that to happen, you know? And it can be really overwhelming. So, yeah, I don't know. It's a tough position to be in, but, you know, you just kind of got to hash it out as best you can.
Yeah, it's like, I honestly don't know how you guys do it. Just every day, it's like, I can make the dumbest tweet about Commander, you know, and get like maybe one person say something, and you can make the same dumb tweet, and oh god, the shitstorm that would ensue.
And the funny thing about that is, like, I'm pretty sure that the stuff that Sheldon says that's you know, stirs up a shitstorm, I could tweet the same thing and nothing would happen. Because different people, like the things that I say bring with them a different set of baggage than the things that he says, right? So, you know, people tend to read stuff into what he says, and they'll, you know, it'll be colored by their past experiences, and that's natural because we're all human. But, you know, if I were to say something like that and it wasn't colored by all the things in the history of the format that Sheldon's ever said, that it might seem a little more innocuous, you know? Yeah, I don't know. It's social media has definitely given us a really weird way to focus on things obsessively, you know?
Yeah, I've noticed that it's like, I don't know, because I feel like as especially the past year, and this is something that Pixie and I have talked about a lot on Normies and just even privately, where, you know, a couple years ago, you could say like I was super obsessed with Magic, like I know everything about set coming out, all this stuff. But as I've starting to get older, it's, even though I still follow like when sets come out, and the sort of quote unquote meta of EDH and all that stuff. I'm not obsessively following it like I used to. Like, especially like Modern Horizons 2 just came out. I still don't know all the cards in it. I can name like one off the top of my head, Academy Manufacturer, because it's badass and I love it because I bought 3 singles of it. But as far as like what else is good in Commander, I don't know. I don't follow that, and I've just noticed, and maybe that's a healthier way to look at the game nowadays, where I'm just not obsessing over it like I used to.
I think it is. I think like I'm doing a lot of the same thing, and I know you said we're going to talk about Legend of Zelda.
We definitely are.
I think diversifying your hobbies is a really healthy thing, and the other thing is that like this ties into what you mentioned earlier about I don't see it on my feed. Having more than one thing on your feed is helpful because it tends to like temper the severity of the reaction, right? So like say today's discourse, whatever it was, right? Mm-hmm. If you only follow Magic people, that's the only thing on your feed, right?
Yeah.
And that again plays into the idea that is the prevailing opinion when it's not really. It's the prevailing opinion of the people that you follow on Twitter. Mm-hmm. But if you follow like local news agencies and your local government and like 2 or 3 other hobbies that you're into, Magic is now 10% of your feed. And when there's a severe reaction to something, it's 10% of your feed. And it doesn't like elicit that reaction from you where you're like, I have to weigh in on this,
Oh yeah, like I've had to do that the past couple of years because, like we said earlier, I used to be bad about like just getting heated up, and it would take everything in me not to just start shit online. But
yep. So yeah, I think that's a really, really healthy thing, especially to talk. Like actually, Sheldon and I were talking about this on Monday because we were talking about podcasts and like not Magic podcasts.
Yeah.
And he's like, "This is good. I'm looking for like other things to do right now."
Well,
like, I don't blame you.
Yeah, I mean, shit. I wish I had more time in the day to focus on Magic content because I don't want to just do like I love my podcast, right? It's my favorite thing that I do, and doing normies with Pixie. But I want to stream more. But it's like fuck, I don't have the time, and I'll get burned out and all that stuff. But it's I'm starting to do some D&D content. It's more I'm working on trying to write my first adventure module that I want to get published. So, and that's been a lot of fun. It's fucking hard. It's not just like writing a little book. No, you got to like write mechanics and stuff, and and this is, and it's weird coming from someone like me who I never ever run adventure modules. I only read them for ideas.
Yeah.
So
yeah. But I think like so the other thing, and this kind of plays into that too, is like having things to do that are offline. Like I honestly believe that the discourse has been worse during the pandemic because people are not playing Magic. And the time that they're not playing Magic, they're talking about Magic, Mm-hmm. And I think that this might start to get a little bit better. At least that's my hope. As people actually get out and start playing Magic again and like remember what they love about the game and not just what they hate about the game, I've definitely felt like that. Like I wish we could do this, but I can't because I can't have people over. But once everybody's vaccinated and stuff like that, I just want to have people over, like not film content or anything like that. I just want to like have a barbecue and play some board games and like
hell yeah, just
like enjoy people's company and not talk about anything to do with like the things that stress us out. Mm-hmm. I think that that's going to be a really cathartic experience for me, and I'm hoping that as the world is opening up, that other people are going through that as well, and I'm hoping it's going to be beneficial for their mental health. Because I think I see a lot of like pain and a lot of loneliness and stuff like that. Like people react more severely when they're hurting and when they feel lonely, mm-hmm. and I think there's a lot of that right now.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I've seen that in some of the comments I've gotten. Mm-hmm. But mm-hmm. So let's move on to something a little bit more exciting. Let's talk about Legend of Zelda. My favorite game series probably of all time.
Me too.
So first question, always got to ask, what's your favorite Legend of Zelda game?
Ocarina of Time.
Ocarina of Time? Oh, that was such a good game.
Yeah, so I would say I might have a different answer if I had grown up at a different time. but I never played Wind Waker when I was a kid because it came out when I was 16 and I was too
Hmm.
cool for this like cartoony kids looking game.
Oh, I know exactly what you mean.
Like that was a common attitude at the time, right?
Oh
Like
yeah,
I'm not imagining that.
I didn't like it when because I was how old are you? How old are you?
I'm 35.
35. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna be 35 in August. So yeah, we I guess I
Yeah.
was like the same age when it came out.
Yeah, it came out in 2002. So,
Yeah, and
but I see a lot of people talking about it now saying like it's one of the best Zelda games of all time and all this kind of stuff.
dude,
And I'm like, man, I never played it.
you know what gets me is how Majora's Mask is like one of the most beloved Zeldas. When at the
Mhm.
time it came out, everyone fucking hated it because it wasn't
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time. Like,
Yeah, it was like it's kind of Uncanny Valley where it was like close enough to being Ocarina of Time
yeah,
that it was like, oh, it uses all the same models and everything like that. But like you're playing it, you're like, wow, this is not Ocarina of Time.
like
And
I only ever played it once as a kid. I beat it completely, and I've never played it since then. And
so I've never played it all the way through. So I didn't play it when I was a kid because I owned Ocarina of Time and I rented Majora's Mask and I played it for like a week or whatever, and then I gave it back and I never played it again. But I got it on an emulator last year, and I would say I'm probably about halfway through it, but I haven't picked it up in like it's not as compelling to me as Ocarina of Time, the story.
yeah,
But I don't know. The more that I like play Ocarina of Time and the more I like read about it and watch content about it, I'm like, man, this game was a masterpiece. Like
it
actually a
was so
masterpiece.
good. It was so good. It was like, and it was that whole period of time where games were going to 3D for the first time. Like Super Mario 64 blew my mind as a kid.
Did you know? Oh, cool Zelda
What?
fact. Did you know that Super Mario 64 and Ocarina of Time are built on the same engine? And
Oh, I
that
didn't know that.
originally N64K. So there's a couple things. Ganon's castle and the like Princess Peach's castle,
Hmm.
they were both originally going to be hub world universes where like you
Oh,
jump through paintings, and that's
yeah.
why in the Forest Temple when you're fighting Phantom Ganon, he's coming out of paintings. That's the same
Oh,
stuff as Super Mario 64.
oh wow! I didn't
And
know that.
there was going to be a horse riding mechanic for traveling long distances in Super Mario 64, and they axed it.
Oh wow! I didn't know that. That's
It's a
crazy.
cool thing,
That that
yeah.
that 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 is cool. That it kind of makes sense. Um, but yeah, like dude, that Ocarina of Time just blew my mind as a kid. But I wouldn't say it's my favorite Zelda though. Link's Awakening has been my favorite Zelda through and through throughout the years after even all the new ones that have come out. It's
Mm.
because it was the first Game Boy one, and for a Game Boy game it was massive. It's a
Oh
massive
yeah.
game, and the fact like even the story is really good in that game too. um it's kind of like really philosophically kind of messed up, like, hey, you beat the game, everyone's dead. You sort of kill
Yeah.
everyone.
Well, that's like Zelda games just in general are kind of dark like that, right?
Yeah,
Like there a lot of them are like you've won, but at what cost? Or like,
right.
yeah. So are you generally like a 2D Zelda guy or like a 3D Zelda guy in general?
mm, I think I'm more of a if the Zelda game is good guy.
Okay,
like
fair.
I like either of them, right? I
Okay.
prefer either of them, but there are a few Zelda games that I've just never been that big a fan of. Like Majora's Mask is one of them. Zelda 2, God, I've tried that game
Zelda
so many
2.
fucking times.
It's hard, hey? It's a hard
It's
game.
fucking hard. Um, and I still don't like it. Like I've beaten it, but I'm like I'm never touching that again.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Did you like cheese Shadow Link at the end, or did you like legit fight Shadow Link?
Dude, I don't remember.
Because
It's like
there's
I,
like a technique where you can crouch and just like spam swords.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah, yeah. God, the last time I beat it, I was either just out of high school or it's in
Yeah.
college, something like that. I can't remember. Um, but it's yeah, I guess those are like the only two Zelda games. And the Hyrule Warriors games, like they're okay.
Eh,
They're fun little mash 'em
eh.
up games, but eh,
Yeah. They're like Zelda themed other games, you know? It's kind of
yeah,
like if you were to come up with a mobile game that had a Zelda theme or whatever, it's like that's about as Zelda as they are, you know?
yeah.
I was like I did play and I did beat Age of Calamity. I
I still
wasn't
haven't
blown
beaten
away
that
by
yet.
it.
Yeah.
It's like solidly okay. You know, I don't think I would call it a Zelda game because there's really no like. One thing about Zelda games is that they make you feel clever when you solve things. Like, you know, when you solve
Yeah.
like a really good puzzle and you're like, wow, that was so satisfying. Age of Calamity doesn't do that, you know?
Oh yeah, because it's like a beat 'em up game type thing. Because
Yeah, like
I played through the
it's,
first one, the first Hyrule Warriors. Like it was okay. Like you say, it was just kind of a mindless game. A
yeah,
mindless game you don't have to think about.
yep, yep.
And
So it's like a, you know, it's like, I'm not going to say it's like Diablo 2 because I think Diablo 2 is actually a little more nuanced than Hyrule Warriors, but it's like, you know, click mouse button numbers go, or like numbers go up,
well, it's
serotonin directly
why
into
are
brain.
you doing that? No, it's like they're just like the oh shit, what game series is it derived from? Oh my gosh,
It's from the Warriors, right? Like
yeah,
there's a
the
bunch of them. A
Dynasty
bunch of different
Warriors.
games. Yeah, Dynasty Warriors.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Um, it's like it's those games essentially, and
Yeah, and like I think if you're a fan of that genre, they're probably pretty good.
yeah,
It's just not my thing, you know.
yeah. It's just I like it. Just it's another Zelda game, but like I said, it's definitely like way down the list there.
Yeah.
Did you ever play the Oracle games on Game Boy?
I never played the Oracle games, but I've heard they're really good.
They're hard. Like the one
Yeah.
that's based on puzzles. Fuck, it's hard.
Yeah. Also, I loved Twilight Princess.
Oh,
Loved
I
Twilight
loved
Princess.
that one. That was such a good one.
And
Really
I've
good
never played
soundtrack.
Skyward Sword.
Are you gonna
So
get the
I'm
HD
oh,
one?
you know I'm getting the HD. I'm gonna do my first playthrough, I think, on Twitch.
Oh, nice, nice. The thing that I'm so excited about with Skyward Sword HD is not having to use the fucking motion controls.
Oh yeah.
Cause dear God, it okay. So I loved Skyward Sword. Like the story is great. The it's probably one of my favorite soundtracks of like all the Zelda games. Um, the motion controls though, like I had to fight through it because there's so many times, even with the Wii Motion Plus, I'm like I'm doing exactly what you're telling me to do, and it's not doing it. Maybe it's better
Yeah.
on the Wii or not the Wii, the Switch.
It's not exactly a surgical scalpel of a
No,
tool, you know.
that
It's fine if you're bowling, but
like I'm so glad like you'll be able to just play it with the other
yeah, with the
joystick.
Joy-Cons.
Like oh
Yeah.
my gosh, and not have to do the whole movement shit. Oh, I'm so excited about that. That was my biggest complaint with that game. Just it was god awful controls.
Yeah. So I'm really excited. Like I've gone pretty deep down the rabbit hole of like Zelda lore. And Zelda lore is a really it's kind of the opposite of Magic lore in that like it didn't really start out having a cohesive story.
Oh yeah, like for the longest time it didn't, and then
Yeah, the first like dozen games there was no story to it really, you know.
and then when Hyrule Historia came out is when they officially
Yep.
made it like the three timeline thing for
Yeah, they
Ocarina of
kind of
Time.
tied it all together and then they
Yeah.
were like um yeah, it's like like I said, it's the kind of the opposite of Magic because Magic used to have like a really rote and like deep like set of novels that
Hmm.
associated with it, right? And then it's kind of flipped the other way where now it's like, do you know anything that happened in Strixhaven's story? I don't.
Liliana's there. That's about all I know.
Yeah, I don't know why. I know that she's there.
Yeah.
But yeah, Zelda lore is kind of interesting in that way because they kind of came up with an overarching narrative that tied a whole bunch of individual stories together, and then now they're actually crafting new games that fit into the storyline in really clever ways. And
Yeah,
like,
they really are. Yeah, when you think about it.
yeah,
Like Breath of
because
the
like Eiji
Wild.
Aonuma,
Yeah.
Eiji Aonuma was like, okay, we've got this timeline now, and then they came out with Skyward Sword, and they were like, okay, this is the thing that sets the story for the like reincarnation of Ganondorf and the warrior in Zelda and all that kind of thing. And then Breath of the Wild is the flip side of that. It's the end of the story, right? So Skyward Sword is the beginning, and Breath of
Oh,
the Wild is
oh,
the bookend to it.
did they confirm that? Like that is supposed to be one
They've
of
confirmed that it's at the end, but they haven't confirmed which timeline it's on.
Oh, so then is Breath of the Wild 2 like an actual sequel then to the story or
Yes.
okay, okay.
Yeah. So I've heard some theories that it's actually like potentially the inevitable end of all three timelines in the split, where it's like it doesn't matter what they did, it was always going to end this way, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's why you see in Breath of the Wild there's callbacks to like games from all three timelines, because like you see stuff from Wind Waker, you see stuff from Majora's Mask, you see stuff from, you know, all of the timelines. Um, Now the game devs have said, you know, it's it does. I think they said it doesn't matter which timeline it's on, which
Yeah.
suggests either they're not going to place it on the timeline or that there's like something coming out that will place it on the timeline very obviously. Um, but the storytelling is incredible, and they've come up with like a really cool story. It's rooted um, in like Taoism and Buddhism and stuff like that, and like there's a lot of really deep
I guess I
themes.
gotta look more into it because I've never, as much as I love the games and all that stuff, I've never really looked that deep into all the lore and the timeline stuff. It's not something that's always been interesting to me that much because I've always just been, I care more about the gameplay.
Yeah,
Um, and
yeah.
but I mean, the way you're describing it sounds really interesting. Especially, I had no idea what, like, where Breath of the Wild even laid on any timeline. I just thought it was like maybe in the middle of somewhere, you know.
Yeah. No, and that's why I'm really excited about the sequel, is because like this is like the end of the series. It doesn't mean that they're not going to make more
Oh, of
games,
course they are. They're
but
gonna
this is
make
like
more.
how the story ends, kind of thing.
That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah, it's really really cool.
So let me get your opinion on Breath of the Wild. Like, did you like the game, and how do you feel about the evolution of the series? And do you think future Zelda games should all take that way that Breath of the Wild played, like that kind of freedom and exploration?
This is like a big question. I love Breath of the Wild. I think it's in my top 3 video games of all time in any genre. Um, it's I really like the open world philosophy. I thought that the world in some places felt a little empty. Um, it's kind of like the No Man's Sky problem, is that you can make a really big world, but if you don't fill it with stuff, then it's just a big empty world, you
Hmm.
know? Um, I did really like the how non-linear it was, in that you can solve problems in a variety of ways, and I think that that leads to like creative gameplay where you're like, you know, I have to get to this place over there, and I could either chop down a tree, or I could go around, or I can climb up this thing and hang glide down, or like
Yeah.
it doesn't put the gameplay on rails and say like you have to hit all of these checkpoints all the way along the way. You can just kind of do whatever you want at your own pace. So like I spent a lot of time just wandering around and gathering mushrooms and riding bears and like
Oh yeah.
doing all the weird shit that you can do in Breath of the Wild. And like I don't even think I've explored the entire game. I've been to all of the areas, but every once in a while you find something and then you realize that you're like, "Oh, I'm in the ruins of Lon Lon Ranch from Breath of the Wild
Yeah.
or from
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time." I'm like, "Oh, that's really cool." And then like things are different at night, and yeah, it's just a really cool. I think that it takes a lot of inspiration from a couple sources. One of them being Minecraft, and I think that Nintendo has kind of seen the writing on the wall. Like Minecraft, just Minecraft, has sold more than all of the like 30 however many Zelda games there are put together.
Hmm.
Like that's how big Minecraft is. Like if you look on YouTube, like 90% of the top biggest videos on YouTube are about Minecraft,
Oh yeah. It's
in the
insane.
game, in the gaming space at
Yeah.
least. And so I think they kind of look at that and they see that people don't necessarily want to be told a story. They want to be part of a story and have like a little bit of agency in it, you know? And like it's if you think about Minecraft, Minecraft is about, if you were to like distill Minecraft down to what it's about beating the Ender Dragon, right?
Okay.
But it's not really. Like that's the enemy that's at the end, but that's not what the game is about, you know? And you just can kind of just do whatever you want in it. It's the same thing with most open concept games like you know, the Fallout games, Skyrim. Like if you want to spend a week just walking around collecting copper in Fallout, you can.
Yeah.
Um, there's no particular urgency or whatever. The sacrifice on the flip side of that is that you don't end up with some of the fun linear designs like Zelda dungeons.
Yeah, that was a huge miss for me because those are
Yeah.
some of my favorite content.
Yeah, and it was like the shrines were okay. Like the shrines I thought had really good puzzle design, but I missed the kind of escape room feel of like my favorite dungeon is the Forest Temple in Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, that was a good one.
And it's incredible, but it feels like an escape room, right? Like you need this
Hmm.
piece to go over there, and then you need a password from here to get into that, and then this key goes in there. And like there's kind of meta puzzles that are like you have to remember that this thing is open when you do this and closed when you do that. And like
Or
there's a
or
lot of
remember to go
really
back to this room when you get this item, and
exactly.
or come visit this dungeon again when you get the hook shot or something, and you know,
Yeah, but because they kind of explicitly designed Breath of the Wild to not be gated by certain game events, that everything is open all the time and there's no closed doors, right? And I think that that's missing. I wish that they could come up with like a hybrid model where
yeah,
you've
I
got
would
some
like that.
dungeons if you want, but maybe they're not necessary, but they're still there, you know? Because then it kind of maintains the non-linearity of the games without losing something that feels like really distinctively Zelda, you know?
Yeah, yeah, and that's not to
Yeah.
say the shrines were bad. Not the not the big shrines. But even like a lot of the smaller shrines you go and visit, there are some that like some of the puzzles were just like, what the fuck? How the
Yeah.
hell do I solve this? And then
Yeah.
you're just like, oh, that's how I do it. Okay, I'm dumb, you know. But I feel like there was too many that were strength of tests though. I feel like those were like
Yeah.
some of the laziest ones. It was not that they weren't bad to have, but it was just like you finally find the shrine, you're just like, oh, it's another strength test. Like, okay.
Yeah. It felt like it kind of felt like they had like there were 120 shrines.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like they had like okay, so on my podcast, I'm going to plug this for a sec. I was just talking to Glenn Jones about card design in Magic, and he said that a lot of cycles in Magic start out as somebody has an idea for two cards that are similar to each other in different colors,
Hmm.
and then they just fill out the rest of the cycle with like similar ideas, but they're not as good as the original two card designs.
Yeah.
Like it's not a cycle, it's just two cards plus some filler, right?
Hmm.
And I feel like that's what the shrines were in Breath of the Wild, where they had like 75 solid ideas for shrines, and then they were like, let's just make the rest of them a test of strength, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. See that. It's
Yeah.
and I agree with a lot of what you're saying. Like I loved the exploration of Breath of the Wild. Even though I agree the world did feel empty, the thing that kept bringing me back to it was you'd see something on the horizon and you're like, I want to go climb there just because,
Yeah.
you know. And a lot of open world games that I do play, I don't feel that way, you know, because I have so many quests and stuff that I have to do, you know, to try to either get stronger or progress the story. Where in Breath of the Wild, you could completely ignore all the quests because the quests aren't going to get you stronger, right? It's your
Yeah.
exploring everything is going to get you stronger, like better gear
Yeah.
and better weapons.
There was like a couple things that I really liked. Like I think that they could do more stuff like the rebuilding Terrytown quest, where you have to like go and find people in different areas of
Yeah.
the map, and each time you do, it kind of like sequentially builds up this town that didn't exist when you started. I think that's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, I like that.
Where again, it's not like it's not related to getting better, or like it's not gonna get you to Ganon. It's not gonna outfit you with the best items. It's just kind of like a cool and flavorful way to like rebuild a disaster landscape after a calamity, right?
Yeah.
I think that if they leaned more on stuff like that, could be a really flavorful world of like rebuilding things after a disaster, without feeling like Fallout 4, where it's like, you know, you got Preston Garvey that's just like, oh, this settlement is under attack, go and kill the people, right? And it's just the same thing every time, and he messages you every 10 minutes. You
Oh
know?
god, that was so annoying.
Yeah, and it's like those are filler quests, right? Like, yeah, it's a
Yeah.
quest, and yeah, you're gonna get a reward for it, but like after 3 or 4 times, you're like, okay, I get it. Like they're under
Yeah.
attack.
Yeah, you stop caring. No,
Yeah.
it's the biggest thing, like we said before, dungeons were the biggest thing missing for me. It's I sort of like that non-linear linearity of Zelda,
Mhm.
where you know, take Twilight Princess, Ocarina of Time for an example. You know, you get into Hyrule Field, you can explore everything there. You can go to a lot of places, but there's still a lot of places that are gated off because you don't have the weapons, or you're still the young kid and you can't get there yet. But there's still so much to explore. There's so many little secrets to explore, even without progressing further. And I'm not saying that Zelda has to go back to that sphere again and like never go back to Breath of the Wild. I just hope we don't start just getting nothing but Breath of the Wild-esque like Zeldas going forward. It's like,
yeah. Like, one thing that I think that the Zelda team has done really well is innovating with each game. Like,
oh yeah,
Breath of the Wild
sure.
is nothing like the last Zelda game that came out. It's like not even close. And I mean, like you said, motion controls maybe turned out to be a disaster, but like, you got to crack a few eggs to make an omelet, right? Like, if you're innovating, you're going to make some mistakes. And I think they've acknowledged the fact that it like maybe wasn't the best idea, but I would rather they try that stuff than not try that stuff and just put out the same Zelda game every 5 years for the rest of my life,
Oh yeah, even a lot of the handheld ones, like the Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass, like even though they're all the stylus controls and all that, they weren't really good games, but it was. They tried something new, though. And same goes for Link Between Worlds. I loved Link Between Worlds. That was a great game. It was a bit on the easy side, even in hero mode. But it was like you could get any item you wanted, but you rented it until you could afford to buy it completely. The 2D power that you had to be able to like go on walls and it has that was great. I freaking loved that little thing. So yeah, it's I still feel like they can go back to the normal formula, but they've done really well just experimenting greatly on wacky stuff.
Like, I gotta give them credit. Like, even there are things that I don't like about Breath of the Wild, but it's still in my top 3 games of all time. I think that that's a masterpiece too. Like, I think if you were looking at this in 100 years and looking at the history of video game design, like, Breath of the Wild is in the book.
I don't know if I'd consider it like in my top 3, but it's probably.
It's in the discussion. I think if you're like Red Dead Redemption or if you're Skyrim or anything like that, you're paying attention to what Nintendo's doing with Breath of the Wild. Because
oh yeah, like I'm not doubting it's not worthy of being in top 3. It's just like my personal favorite games. I don't know if it would crack it. It's
what are your top 3?
Final Fantasy VI, probably because it was the first game that I can remember playing as a kid that really showed me that video games can have a story that can affect you and touch you. And because we had previous Final Fantasy games before that. Like, I think the only other Final Fantasy that came close at the time to a story of that magnitude would be 4 at the time.
4. But even then, it's a little bit more superficial, right? Like, it's not like real people having real emotions about real things,
Yeah.
Like, even not even real things, but like things that you can at least relate to.
Yeah, I think it was only really Cecil was the only one you could even really relate to in terms of. But 6 was still my all-time favorite game. And this game that I played just recently has cracked like as my second favorite game of all time, Last of Us 2. Like,
I haven't played it, but I've heard some incredible things about it.
So I like anyone who knows me knows, like, not that I don't like modern games and all that stuff, but when it comes to like, top 5, top 10 lists, like, there's never going to be a modern game that really cracks my list. But and I loved the first Last of Us. It was good, but I would never consider it like a top 10 favorite game of all time. Last of Us 2, all I can say is holy fuck. that game was that to me has been like the pinnacle of storytelling in video games. Like,
Maybe I'll have to check that out.
Like, I can't see how Naughty Dog can top that, which I'm sure they will at some point, but it was so good.
The thing is, when game studios put out like real bangers like that, they attract a lot of really talented people that want to work on the next thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, they attract the people that like that kind of thing, and they're like, I want to help.
Yeah. It's and like I said, I remember Pixie telling me, like, just play Last of Us 2, play it, you're gonna love it. And I'm like, I when I get into the game, I'm like, it's not bad. Like, I'm enjoying the game, but as it went on further, I'm like, I can't stop playing it. Like, holy fuck. Like, there's no other game right now that I can play that can just even come close to it. And then my third favorite game would be Link's Awakening.
Okay.
Or sometimes it switches. Like, it's Link's Awakening or Suikoden 2. Suikoden 2 was so good. You ever played the Suikoden games?
Nope.
Oh, man. Nope. Those are... There's a theme here with a lot of my favorite games. It's good storytelling, because I love stories. Suikoden 2, like, the whole Suikoden series is based off of, what is it, some old Japanese tale, like the Legend of the 108 Stars or something like that. And Suikoden series is a lot about war and stuff, and like how it affects people and all that stuff. And just Suikoden 2, just going from Suikoden 1, which is a really good game, then you go to Suikoden 2 and just notches like the storytelling of just how war can affect family and friends, and especially like how do you still stay friends with someone who's fighting on the enemy side of a war, you know,
right?
Or what you consider the enemy side, and then, you know, they vice versa think you're the enemy. So it's like it's some pretty deep stuff. It's like it's really
and is that
good.
older? Like, I've never heard of those.
Yeah, they're on the PlayStation 1. Yeah, the series was never that popular, unfortunately.
I never had a PlayStation, so I wasn't really like, I shouldn't say that. I bought a PlayStation like 10 years ago, a PlayStation, original PlayStation, strictly because I found a cheap copy of God of War 2 at a garage sale, and I wanted to play it.
Oh, God of War games are so great.
PlayStation. Oh yeah, they're awesome.
Oh yeah, it's I got the God of War collection for PS3, where it had like all 3 of them in the PSP games, and then the new God of War game that came out on PS4.
Oh yeah, I haven't played that. I don't have a PS4, so.
Oh man, hell, you should get one. Well, I mean, hey, you should probably wait for PS5 then, because I think they're re-releasing God of War on that. But
you're literally just building gaming PCs now, though, right? Like,
pretty much. I mean, well, no, you need to get a PS4 so you can play Last of Us 2.
Oh, fair.
Yeah, so you need one.
Yeah, I'll just go rent one from Blockbuster, and I'll be it in a week, right?
well, what you can do is buy one from Amazon, and then you have the 2-week return policy or something on it. Get Last of Us 2, beat it like within at least the week, and then just return it.
I'll just put a post on Reddit being like, "Be right back, Last of Us 2. be back in a week."
Yeah, but yeah, I know these consoles are now more like PCs anyway. But it's like my favorite console, especially lately, has just been the Switch. The Switch has still been like one of
incredible.
The best consoles that have been released within the past 10 years.
I play Slay the Spire on Switch.
I've not played that. I've heard that's
incredible.
really good. Yeah.
It's like I'm not going to say it's better than Magic, but it's pretty damn close.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. Like, it's really good. I'm gonna have to
really good.
I'll have to eventually check it out, because I just picked up the Dritz game, the Dark Alliance, on PC, and I mean, it's not the best game, but I mean, I love all the D&D lore of like Dritz and Bruiner and all that. So to me, I'm just like geeking out. Like, yeah, the gameplay's not the greatest, but oh shit, I can finally get to see how some of my favorite locations look, or how they're expecting it to look.
That was all that liked about Age of Calamity that I really enjoyed, was that you could walk through like all these places from the Breath of the Wild timeline, but before they were destroyed. So you could be like, this was the ruins of whatever in Breath of the Wild, and now it's like a thriving town. And it was cool to see like what that Hyrule looked like before it was destroyed. I liked that about Age of Calamity, and I hope they do more of that in Breath of the Wild too.
And I haven't even beaten Age of Calamity, but to me, I've only played like the first couple levels, but man, I just get such like a depressed feeling of that game. It's like, you know, they're all gonna die. You know, they're all gonna fail. So it's like, fuck, why even bother like fighting?
Do I tell him? I'm not gonna spoil it. Finish Age of Calamity.
Yeah, I need to. I need to. Or unless it's like some timeline variant or something.
I'm not Zuby, you're baiting me into this. I'm not gonna spoil it.
Oh man, I'll get to it eventually. There's just too much shit, man.
Try Slay the Spire first, though. It is an immensely rewarding game. It's like, I'm not exaggerating. I actually play it every day.
Interesting.
I play it way more than I play Magic.
God, I'm playing too many games right now. I just got hooked back onto World of Warcraft. It's
Oh no.
it's that's a game I just can't seem to quit. Like I've played since the very beginning, and it's this relationship where it's like the old girlfriend you can't quit or anything.
You just keep sucking you back in, right?
Yeah. I just text WoW at 3 a.m. You up?
You up.
And I go to the computer and play. Oh, but and it happens. It's like, I mean, I still love the game. I love that. Once again, it's mainly because of the lore. I love the story of it. It's not the greatest story, but it's these characters that I've been connected to even before WoW, like Warcraft 2 and 3. Getting to see some of these characters still, and it's yeah. So I guess it's safe to say that stories. I love stories. That's what hooks me in video games, especially.
Yeah, well, definitely. I'm going to send you some videos then after this about Breath of the Wild and about the
Oh
Zelda
yeah,
lore.
Oh yeah, I because that's like one series that I never followed too deeply. Surprisingly, it's like one of my favorite series. Like you can see a little bit behind me. It's I've got my little Zelda shelf.
If you want to like feel things, I'm going to recommend one particular video to you and all of your viewers, and I'm not sure if you've seen it before, but it's called Ocarina of Time: A Masterclass in Subtext.
Okay.
And this video is incredible. It's like a half hour documentary about the major themes in Ocarina of Time. And if you want to feel things, that will be the Zelda video for you.
And see, that's
stuff. I guarantee it's stuff that you didn't pick up on when you were 12. And
I'm sure, because I have not played through that game, and I've been meaning to play them again because I got the 3DS remakes of Majora's and Ocarina of Time, and I played a little bit of Ocarina of Time, just probably like the first dungeon, and that was it. But I've been meaning to play them again. It's just, dude, it's time.
It holds up.
Yeah,
it holds up. Oh
yeah, because I just even recently replayed the first Legend of Zelda and Link to the Past, and those games still hold up. God.
I'm currently playing through Link to the Past. It's great.
That's another one of my favorite Zeldas. Like I can still remember the first time I rented that game, because I still remember the first time playing Legend of Zelda on NES, and it blew my mind. You can save your game, and you could go wherever you wanted, and God, it took me forever to beat that game.
Yep. A lot of these old games are hard, and they're unforgiving.
Oh yeah. Like... they had to be, though, because so many of the games back then were short. Not that the first Legend of Zelda was exactly short, but like just so many of those platformers back then were really short games, so they had to make them hard. But dude, I can still remember the first time turning on Link to the Past, and you just wake up in your uncle's house and you walk outside, it's raining. Like, it blew my mind. Like, oh my god, this so atmospheric. It was so amazing.
It's a solid game. Like, like you said, like storyline wise, like mechanics wise, puzzles. The puzzles are like maybe a little on the easy side, but
there was only like a few dungeons that I remember even being somewhat hard puzzle. Like the ice dungeon still always gets me confused, like where the hell to go.
The bosses are hard, though. Like they're difficult fights.
Yeah, I can remember all the bosses being hard, but then Ganon at the end was just so easy to me. Like, like okay, like all these other bosses tough, and like Ganon, like you're a pushover.
That was one thing that I didn't like about Breath of the Wild, is that I thought that Dark Beast Ganon fight was a joke. It was like it might as well have been a cutscene. Right? Like why make that gameplay? Just make it a cutscene.
The whole castle area getting to Ganon was so fucking difficult.
Yeah.
And then you get to Ganon, you're like, that's it? What?
And you're like, oh, like it's gonna do this whole thing for me. It's almost like those God of War sequences where it's like press Y and he does like a backflip and a whole bunch of stuff, and then you're like press X and he does another backflip and stuff. That's what that fight felt like.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The my favorite Ganon fight has always been the Twilight Princess one. Like, just all the phases of it was so good.
That's one thing that I think the Zelda series does really well, is those like multi-phase fights where you have to totally change your strategy, and that was a really good one.
Yeah, that was what you do, the Ocarina of Time-esque bouncing the energy back with fighting the Princess Zelda possessed body, whatever. and then you fight the big Ganon pig, and then the horseback archery one, and then the whole sword duel was so badass.
Oh yeah.
That was awesome.
That whole game was very cinematic. Like,
oh my gosh,
it was very cinematic. Like, not even just like it has a lot of cutscenes or whatever, but like the way that they frame even the gameplay, it's very like atmospheric, like you said. Like, it sets a mood.
It's a, like, depressing mood too, but
Yeah.
but with a glimpse of happiness in there.
Yep.
Like, just slightly. But one thing I wanted to bring up with Link to the Past, did you ever read the Link to the Past comic that Nintendo Power made?
I didn't.
Oh man, you need to look it
Like
up.
the manga?
No, not the manga. It's a, you remember Nintendo Power, right?
Mhm.
So Nintendo Power used to do comics in there,
yeah.
and they did a, I don't know how, I think it was like a year-long thing where they did a comic of Link to the Past, and then
Okay.
later they sold it in, like, just a full comic
Oh, like a
form.
bound copy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely worth reading. It's good. Have you
yeah?
read any of the Zelda manga?
No.
I haven't either. Just curious.
It's like it's not canon, I don't think.
Yeah, and they're based on, like, they're just retellings of the storyline for some of the
Pretty
games,
much.
right?
Yeah, there's a couple things in there that like some people think are canon, but it's not like officially canon.
Yeah.
And like, they're kind of in a weird middle space. It's kind of like gold bordered cards in Magic, where they're cards, but they're not really cards, but they're made by WotC, but they've got gold borders and they don't have real backs, and like it's like as close to canon as you're gonna get without being canon,
Yeah. And the thing that Nintendo really needs to get on the ball, they need to make an anniversary collection of Zelda of the Philips CDI games. Come on, Nintendo. What the
They
hell?
don't.
Come on.
If that happens, if that happens before I get like literally any games other than Skyward Sword on the Switch, I'm gonna riot.
That would be the best, because, like, those are the only games I don't have in my collection, because I have every other single Zelda game, like, physical. I just
Could you
don't have
imagine
those.
the community's reaction if they were like, hey, it's Zelda's 35th anniversary. To celebrate this, we're porting one of the most classic Zelda games of all time onto the Switch, and then you find out that it's those.
Yeah, all three of them. Well, hey, the cool thing about that is two out of the three Philips CDI games, they were Zelda games. Like, you could play Zelda and all that. And I mean, yeah, that'd be terrible marketing, but it'd be hilarious though.
It would be really funny. The reaction would be something for the ages.
Oh my
I think they
God.
would have to like shortly follow it up with putting like a banger of a Zelda game,
Like,
on Switch.
Just kidding. We're actually bringing Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD. Like,
Yeah,
why
that
haven't
would
they
be
done that yet? Ugh.
Could you imagine the reaction if they were like, "Hey, we're gonna do the Philips CDI games," and then like an hour later they were like, "Oh, just kidding, it's Twilight Princess and Wind Waker."
Oh, dude, I would totally
Just like they would be trending on every platform in the world.
They would be, but I feel like they wouldn't do it because their stock price would probably just start plummeting.
Yeah, I know.
Oh God, but it's like how much it'd be so worth it though. Like, just for the lulls, it'd be so worth
it would
it.
be so funny.
Oh man, it's God, yeah.
It'd be like Magic saying we're releasing like Homelands remastered on MTGO.
Oh
like,
God.
Like, let's draft Homelands, or let's draft like one of these just awful old sets. Like, and then following it up by being like, oh, just kidding, it's actually Rise of the Eldrazi. Or like Innistrad.
Yeah. Or if they're doing like Homelands remastered as a paper product, right? Oh God.
Oh God. WotC, if you're listening, do that.
Do it.
And then announce
I dare
Rise of the
you.
Eldrazi in paper.
Yeah, dude. I look at the analytics of my downloads of my podcast. I have some listeners in Washington and Seattle, so maybe it is some Wizards employees.
Yeah, well, there you go. Do you know that in our second episode ever, we had a guy message us because Jerry, one of the people from our group, made a joke because I chaos warped something of his or whatever, and he shuffles it into his deck, and he made the joke that he's going to flip it off the top, the same permanent, because of the Moto shuffle bug.
Mm-hmm.
And we had one of the developers from WotC on Moto message us and say, hey, can you give me some screenshots of that bug you're talking about? I want to open a defect.
Oh, damn.
And we're like, we were joking, but hi.
Oh, damn. That's awesome, though. It's awesome. I thought that story was going to go totally different. I don't know what I was expecting. Because it's like, I get a lot of good comments, but then I usually get a lot of just troll comments, too.
Oh, yeah.
Just a lot of weird
let me ask you. I know this is not an interview of Zuby, but what's your favorite comment, either like bad or good, that you've ever gotten on anything you've ever made? What's one that like sticks in your brain that you'll never forget? God. I have one in my brain. If you want to think about it, I'll tell you mine.
Yeah. Tell me yours, because I'd have to think about it.
So mine is, somebody said on my video, if I'm ever in space and in trouble, I want the person on the other end of the phone to look like Jim.
What? Is that supposed to be good or?
I have no idea. I will never forget this comment. Like, somebody is thinking a lot about this imagined scenario.
Now, God, I have to think about comment. I've had 2 fan interactions that have been probably the most bizarre that have been burned in my mind. I don't want to talk about it on the show because it's
fair. That's fair.
I can tell you after the interview, but as far as like a comment, I mean, the only thing that comes to mind recently was I released a status update video when I had my house flood, and and I had to tell people like, hey, I'm going through this house flood. I can't I just had to cease everything with the podcast and everything content creation. And I would get these comments like just people saying, and I don't know if they were from the same person, they probably were, just saying like, oh, I'm making this up, I hope your house like gets destroyed or something, and all this stuff. I'm like, dude, wow, what the fuck? Just all this hate all of a sudden, just like, okay, whatever. But as far as like, I've had a lot of good comments. Oh wait, no, I do remember another fan interaction too. I'll have to tell you that after the I've had a lot of fucking weird people come to me, man.
Oh, I have another good one. We like, I don't know, I don't know if this is like something that people say or not, but we've always said in our play group, I have no effects to that. So somebody would cast a spell, be like, does anybody have any effects? And he'd say like, I have no effects to that.
Okay.
And I guess it would be more correct to say I have no responses to that, right?
Yeah.
But it's like kind of a combination of saying I have no effects and I have no responses to that, there was one guy that got really upset about that in our content. He told us that we were committing word crimes by not using proper grammar when we're passing priority. Oh, and I was like, word crimes.
Word crimes.
I'm like, I want to get that on a playmat. You are committing word crimes.
There's the thought police. Now there's the word police.
Yes, the word crime division. It's law and order word crimes division.
Yeah, law and order word crime. I love that. So WCD.
Yeah, exactly. In Magic, there are 2 groups of players: the active players and the non-active players.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I love it. That's got to be a sketch. It's got to be like 2 people watching some content or whatever, and they watch Spike Feeders like, I have no effects to that, and just sirens start going off, and
let's roll.
We gotta go.
Somebody get Pixie. Write this down, Pixie. Get in on this.
Come on. Oh
this
my
could be
god.
your big TikTok debut.
Oh my god. My speaking of Pixie, my favorite video of hers of all time, or one of my favorite videos that she ever did, was her Wizzy video. The Alexa, like
Alexa,
type thing, like, hey Wizzy. Oh my god, I've told her like, you need to do a Wizzy 2.0. You have to.
Like there's infinite content there, right? Like about it misunderstanding you and all that kind of stuff. Like one of the big sounds on TikTok is Alexa, remind me to go to the gym. And they're like, I've added gin to your shopping list. And they're like, oh, okay, that works.
Yeah, that does work.
Yeah.
But oh man, yeah, that's great. It's great. Shit, what were we talking about before? Yeah, Zelda. I don't know. Good
question.
There was something I wanted to bring up. With the advent of Spell Table, and I guess with just playing a lot more EDH. Like, this is the most I've played EDH the past year in like forever, because before I would only play, you know, either at GPs or something, Magic Fest, and then maybe once, maybe twice a month at my LGS, because, you know, life and all that. So with the advent of Spell Table, it's getting a lot easier. What I've noticed with myself is I'm getting less patient with people who solitaire a lot. Have you noticed any changes in your behavior like that, or?
I think some of that, I have some theories on that. So I also think that this is artificially directing like the discourse in general. Do you remember when Opposition Agent got spoiled? This is like a little bit of a tangent on that. But do you remember when Opposition Agent got spoiled? And everybody's like, this is going to be the end of the format. And I'm like,
the whole world melted.
People aren't going to be playing a lot of Opposition Agent because they're playing a lot of webcam Magic right now. And I think that that's the case for Opposition Agent, Turgid, even stuff like Villainous Wealth and stuff like that. It's just hard to play. Like, there's Infinite Tokens and stuff, and that's a great product.
Oh, I love it. But it's annoying, like, too, because it's, especially if you're the player playing those, you're like, okay, now I got to write it down. Right. What does it do? Now I got to look it up. You know?
Right, and I'm not playing like Mnemonic Betrayal where I have to track what's in everybody's graveyards and stuff like that, you know? Yeah. So, like, I think that actually has kind of suppressed some of the conversation around those cards that might actually start to pick up a little bit as people play them when it's more convenient to play them.
Yeah, you know? I can see that.
So that's one of the reasons why in the last like rules announcement and stuff like that, it was like, we have some thoughts on some stuff, but we're just gonna like let it play out and see how big of a deal these are like in the real world once people start playing paper Magic in person again. You know, that was like one of my biggest pieces of feedback to the rules committee, was like, I don't have any hard opinions on this stuff because I don't know how representative this online play is of like what's going on at my LGS right now, you know? Mm-hmm. So I guess the question that you had was like maybe changing a little bit how tolerant you are of that kind of thing. And I think there's a couple things that lead into that, because Spell Table, obviously, however good it is, and like, honestly, I think that Spell Table is like one of the reasons why we're even still playing Commander right now. I think we would have been in rough shape if Spell Table was not around. But one thing that you can't do when you're on Spell Table, when somebody's comboing off, you can't like turn to the person next to you and talk about something else.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah.
You know, if you're at your LGS, you can't like get up and go grab a chocolate bar or something like that, you know, because like you kind of have to be at the table. Otherwise, like, people are just waiting around for you to see if you have any effects instead of just shouting at you across the store, you know?
Yeah.
It's just a different environment, and you're kind of restricted in how you can act while somebody else has the spotlight, you know? Because you don't want to talk over people. And this happens on streams and everything too, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you don't want to talk over people too much. But in a real game, you can like talk to the person next to you while somebody's doing something, and that's not a problem, you know?
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. I never thought of it that way, and I guess for like my listeners and viewers, don't take it that anytime someone has a solitaire turn, like, I hate it. It's because everybody has that, right? There's always going to be turns where you're like, people just don't know what to do. Sometimes they have a lot of effects happening on the board, but when it gets to the point where people just, you know, start taking forever every single time their turn, I'm like, oh my gosh, come on.
Yeah, I just find that when I'm playing with webcam Magic, I feel like I'm tethered to my desk.
Yeah.
And when somebody else is acting, like, you kind of just have to let them do it and not interrupt until they're done. And then it just feels like you're sitting there doing actually nothing, you know? Whereas that's not really the case in paper gameplay. So I don't know. It's just a different experience. I think that I definitely understand that, and I can relate to that for sure.
I don't know, interesting. I was just curious, like, if you've noticed any of like sort of what you used to tolerate, like, has either changed or diminished or anything like that. Because for the most part, it's like in paper gameplay, like especially EDH, I'm like super chill. Like, nothing really affects me that much, and like in terms of like emotion, like, you want to play something crazy, cool, all right, cool, let's do it, you know?
Yeah.
But like on webcam, I'm starting to notice where it's like, come on, hurry up here. Especially when you're trying to be entertaining too with the stream crowd too. It's like, It's like, come on, we don't need the 5-minute turns.
Streaming Magic is different. I'm going to be doing a Spike on the Mic episode about this because I've had this conversation with quite a few other content creators. The interesting thing about streamed Magic and actually recorded Magic in general as well is that what's entertaining is not always what's fun to do while you're playing the game.
Yep. Oh,
Olivia and I
hell
talk
yeah.
about this quite a bit. And that's that I find that actually streaming and recorded content is more entertaining when people play less removal. Because like when you're playing Magic, especially if you're playing like any kind of 60 card constructed format, like one of the things that can be really like challenging and rewarding for you might be playing like a really tight control game where you're just like removing everything that your opponent sticks on the board, and then you're like preventing whatever you can't remove, right? Like you're counterspelling stuff. That's a miserable play experience. A control mirror is the worst possible thing for getting people excited about Magic, right? There is a group of people that enjoys watching it, and like more power to them. You can like what you like, right? But you're not drawing a big audience with a control mirror, right? And I think that that's the case with recorded Commander content as well. If you're like the type of person that plays 22 board wipes in your deck and wants to beat people down with a 2-3 commander until they're all dead and just put the game on like a 60 turn clock, you can't get viewers that way, you know?
Oh yeah.
You have to be ramping things up to the point where exciting things happen, exciting and unique experiences. Because a lot of the time what you're showing the audience is not just what's happening in the game, but people's reaction to what's happening in the game as well.
Yeah.
And I know this is a really common criticism of Game Nights, but I think that Game Nights does actually an incredible job of it. Game Nights is a sitcom about people playing Magic. It's not necessarily content about Magic games, you know? They care much more about the reaction to what's going on than what's actually going on. It's about personalizing people and watching people enjoying playing a game, you know? And it's a very different experience with actually a different audience than a lot of people are expecting. But that's why when they say, well, you know, they should cut away from the board less and, you know, cut to people's reactions less. And it's like, well, no, that's a pretty integral part of what they do. It's like literally what their audience wants. And it's why they're popular.
Yeah, that's why they've done so well.
So when you're making content, you have to think about stuff like that, right? Like hard stacks is not a good idea.
Yeah, and it's really has changed the way that I build new decks too. That I know that I'm gonna stream. Yeah, I still have some asshole decks that I build, but it's, you know, I definitely stray away from putting in 10 board wipes like I used to. And that was like a huge mind shift for me. Like when we moved to like just our little Discord that we have, when we started playing Magic on Discord before Spell Table. And then even when we first moved to Spell Table, a lot of my decks were a lot stronger than everyone else's on my Discord. And that was due to because I played with a lot of high-powered people, but I never felt it was that high-powered, you know, comparatively. You know what I mean? It's just sort of like how my play group evolved. And so I've had to learn to really depower a lot of my decks, not make everything so optimized. And I'm enjoying that more than just making everything optimized. But it's been a huge shift in just deck building philosophy, especially for stream. It's you want to make it entertaining, but you don't want to make every match a complete slog too, because
and so like the decks that I play on stream are not necessarily the decks that I would play in person, right? Like I play a lot more lower power Magic on stream because I find that more varied things happen, you know?
Yeah.
It's not always that like control mirror. And some, like I said, some people are looking for that experience. More power to them. But it's not going to draw big crowds. That's not how you like grow in a significant way in your audience, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a really interesting thing to think about because when you talk to a lot of creators, most of them already do this stuff, whether they're realizing it or not. Like, right, they'll say like mulligan until you have a keepable opening hand. Because you know what's not entertaining? Watching somebody start with a 3-land or 3-card opening hand and miss their first 3 land drops, right? Miserable, right? That's not entertaining. So like multi till you get a keepable opening hand. Or like...
Yep, that's been pretty much the norm, and even the few times I've played Paper Magic with some of my friends, now it's been just keep drawing till you get a good hand, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And so like most content creators do that, I've found. Like we do that. And even in
Yeah.
our CDH games, we do that. Um, yeah, it's really, really interesting. Because it seems like a lot of content creators sort of naturally arrive at that conclusion, but a lot of the people that are watching the content don't necessarily realize that it's a conscious choice.
Hmm.
And so you end up with a lot of people saying, well, this person should have just run more optimization or run more removal and stuff like that. And they wouldn't have been in this situation. And it's like, well, if they ran more removal, then you wouldn't have had most of the stuff that happened in that game, you know?
Yeah. It only if you played the best cards in every single deck you build, you know.
Yeah. And so like that's kind of what I've been talking about lately, especially in the past couple days, is that like I think one of the things that we all as a community need to be more conscious of is the specific interaction where somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, like, can you give me feedback on my list? Right? Can you take a look at my deck, and give me some feedback, or let me know what you think of my list?" Right? This is not necessarily an invitation to tell them all the things that they're doing wrong, right? So a lot of the time, like in other formats, like you might go on Reddit and say, "Hey, I want to bring my affinity list to FNM and I need to tune my sideboard. Like, what improvements would you make to my sideboard?" That's the feedback that they're looking for. It's like,
Yeah.
how can I effectively engage with what I'm expecting to play against, right? Whereas in EDH, it's not necessarily I want to win games more. It's I have some things about this deck that I know are fun. I don't necessarily know what they are, but I don't want to get rid of them, you know? So, like when you say to somebody, well, you shouldn't be playing Goblin Bombardment, you should be playing some other sack outlet, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, I like the idea of throwing my goblins at people, and this is a goblin deck, right? Or even like some other like more flavorful cards, maybe not ones that aren't like actually very efficient sacrifice outlets, but um, you know, I play a Vile Smasher deck and I play like Erratic Explosion and like Kaboom and stuff like that. And they're just like goofy random cards that fit with my theme. And they're not optimal. But if I were to give my deck to somebody and say, what do you think I should do with this list? There are a lot of people that would tell me, well, you could be playing a more efficient win condition and you could be playing like all this stuff and better interaction.
Hmm.
And like, I don't play Soul Ring. I'm sure most people would tell me to run Soul Ring. But that's not what I'm looking when I'm looking for
Yeah.
feedback on my list, right? Like what I think that positive interaction could be is like if I hand you my list and say, can you give me some feedback on my list? You come back at me and you say, what do you like about your list, right? What
Yeah.
do you want it to do?
Yeah. What are you trying to do? Like,
What are you trying to do? And then let's
yeah.
help you get there. And because that might not be winning, you know? It could
Hmm.
just be, oh, I want to assemble all of the Elder Dragons on the board at the same time. Or like, I want to tell the story of the Weatherlight. Like, I want to use my Captain Sisay to crew the Weatherlight. And that's like my story deck that I want to build, you know?
Yeah.
And so like, let's help you do that.
I know. And I feel like it's hard for a lot of people to do that because just with Magic being a game that is at its core competitive, it's a game that designed to win. You play a game to win. It's hard for a lot of people to just not tell you, well, you got to play Soul Ring, you got to play Mox Opal,
Yeah.
you got to whatever other card, just to
Yeah.
put it out there.
And so what happens there is when that becomes like the dominant like ethos of the format where it's like you've got pro players that are commenting on how EDH players never run enough lands and stuff
And
like
don't
that.
buy
And
doubling
they're making
seasons, God, or
yeah,
they no, they buy too many, or
yeah.
something.
And they're like they're making a value judgment saying like EDH players don't really know how to play Magic because if this was a pro player, they'd be playing 3 more lands and they'd be diversifying the lands like this and they would be running different interaction suite and all this kind of stuff. And like that's a valid way to play Magic. It is. Like I'll be the first one to say if you want to do that, that's great. But even as a high power player, I don't want that to be the only way to play EDH, right?
Exactly,
Like,
exactly.
I don't want that to be the predominant idea that if you're not optimizing, you're doing it wrong, you know?
And that's where I felt that Sheldon hit it perfectly on Monday, the homogenization effect, because that's something that I see a lot of where it's so easy to just to tell people like just play the best cards, especially new players, right? And like someone who's brand new to Magic who has no idea the depth of how many cards there are in Magic's history. It's so easy to tell them, well, you need to play XYZ because it's the best.
Yep. Yep. And so, yeah, like I said, if there's like one takeaway that I'm going to be trying to promote a lot more publicly is that when somebody comes and asks you what you think of their deck, or if they're looking for feedback, or if you want to give somebody feedback, ask them what they're trying to do and what they enjoy. That's what's important. Help them pursue that. And it might be winning. Yeah. And if it is winning, then help them optimize. That's great. Like you might have something you can share about how to do things more effectively that might help them out if winning is what they want to do. But don't assume that it's winning from the get-go, because it might not be.
Yeah, it's some of my favorite decks that I have are decks that will probably never win except by mistake, and they do like the big splashy stuff because they're the most fun to play. It's and that's what I love about EDH is the thing that's always drawn me to it is the fact that not only is it essentially vintage legal because it's got every single Magic card available, and that there's even to this day, after how many years of playing EDH, there's still certain cards that get paired with newer cards, and you're like, wait, that does what again? That it does some crazy interaction you never would have thought of, and just blows your mind. I love that to this day, that that it's still capable of doing that.
Let me tell you a cool story. I was playing my Kangi Changing Tribal deck. So this is like pre-Morophon. It's like Lords and Changelings in Azorius. And I was playing against a guy, I don't even remember what he was playing, but I remember this interaction. It's like burned into my brain. This is like when I was fairly new to the format. I had an Avian Changeling out. So it's like a flyer Changeling.
Yeah.
And back across me casts Worst Fears to take control of my turn. Okay.
Oh, yeah. That's that Theros one, or Born of Gods.
Yeah. So he's like, Worst Fears, I'm taking control of your turn. It's like I don't know, 7 or 8 mana sorcery.
Yeah, it's expensive.
And he says, okay, so it gets around on my turn. He like grabs my hand of cards and he's like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. And he goes into the tank for like a long time. And he's like, okay, I know what we're gonna do. So he goes in and he makes me attack him with my Avian Changeling. Okay. And he declares no blocks and takes the damage.
Okay.
Then post-combat main phase, he casts Knowledge Exploitation for its Prowl cost to like search through his own library, to make me search through his own library and cast a spell out of it. And he grabs Toxic Deluge and pays my entire life total into it.
Oh, damn.
And the funny thing is, because
that's great.
Because my life total is 0, SBAs, like state-based actions, get checked, and the Toxic Deluge doesn't even resolve, so he gets to keep all of his creatures.
Oh, shit. So
because I control the Toxic Deluge, and then when I die, it gets removed from the stack.
Oh, shit. Oh, that's crazy. Oh, damn. I didn't know that. Like, so if you kill yourself with Toxic Deluge, it doesn't resolve.
It doesn't resolve. No, it doesn't.
Wow.
Resolve.
That's good to know. It's good to know.
I'm like, wow, this is the most galaxy brain shit. And I'm like, I can't even be mad. That was such a spectacular way to lose the game.
See, and that's still possible in EDH, even to this day. Like, after how many years in, you're just still stuff that blows my mind. The thing that that I can think of that blew my mind, not recently, but my buddy Food Time, he plays what's her name? From Throne of Eldraine, the uncommon red Sir Ellie or Sir. I
don't know.
Okay,
I didn't pay a lot of attention to Eldraine. I don't know.
She's this uncommon red commander that whenever you cast a sorcerer instant, exile the top card of your library and all that stuff, and it does something like that, and he just I thought like, oh, this commander is no big deal, right? And then he just ends up storming off and just blows my mind. Right. It's just stuff like that you so many cards out there that seem unassuming, and you're just like, it's no biggie, don't worry about it, and then they just shit all over you.
Yep.
And I love it.
It's like there's so much depth to the format. I always say that one of the reasons why I play a lot of high power EDH is because there's so much more to explore in EDH than just Battlecruiser. Like I love Battlecruiser. I love exploring interesting things to do. It's like it's one of the ways that you can vary your gameplay. If you're looking for varied games, like I would say if you're looking for varied games, you're probably not looking for exclusively CDH because you're going to end up playing quite a bit with a core like 200 cards.
Yeah.
With and against. But if you're looking for varied gameplay, it's something that you can add to your repertoire to be like, this is the type of Magic that I want to experience today, you know? And there's like unique and distinctively Commander things that come up at the higher power levels as well. Like as an example, I was playing, this actually happened in one of our episodes. Bill, my brother, started going off with Karmic Guide and Felidar Guardian.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like at a sack outlet. So I don't exactly know how it works, but it's like Karmic Guide enters battlefield, you return Felidar Guardian to the battlefield from your graveyard. It blinks the Karmic Guide. You can sack the Felidar Guardian response and so on.
Sort of like the Protean Hulk Karmic Guide.
Yeah. And so while he was going off with this, he's got a Japanese Karmic Guide, and this kind of plays into the story because I'm like sitting here and I was playing Momir Vig Hackball, which is a deck that uses color changing cards to change Momir Vig's color words in his abilities.
Oh, dang.
And yeah, it's a really cool deck. And so I'm sitting here and I've got these like fucking magical hacks in my hand. And as he's going off with this Karmic Guide loop, I'm like, wait a minute. Karmic Guide has protection from black, doesn't it? I can give it protection from white and stop the loop.
Oh, shit.
And so I did it, and he was like, okay, I think I figured out a way to fix this. And he like starts going through the loop again, and he goes to cast Summoner's Pact. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you can go ahead and Summoner's Pact or whatever. And he goes to grab, I think he was grabbing Protean Hulk at the time. And I look at his lands, and I'm like, if I magical hack one of your lands, then you don't have enough mana to pay for Protean Hulk in your upkeep. So if you can't win right now, you lose. So I like hacked his that's
Taiga. So awesome.
I hacked his Taiga to be a mountain island instead of a mountain forest.
Mm-hmm.
And he ended up winning with the like pay for Summoner's Pact trigger on the stack in his upkeep on his next turn.
How the fuck did he win?
It was a sick game. But it was like these really weird, super niche, ultra specific interactions. And I'm like, yeah, we were playing CDH decks, but that is like a distinctively Commander experience. That would never happen in any other format.
I know. And that's the best thing about Commander, man. It's friggin', you're not going to get those experiences in Modern, Legacy, even Draft. I mean, I've had some really good games in other constructed formats that, you know, I can tell on the podcast here, but there's been nothing quite like some of the crazy stories that you get in EDH, though.
Yeah. Like, I always like to say, like, you know how people always say, well, I didn't know that my deck could do that, or like, that's the first time my deck has ever done that.
Yeah.
I love the stuff in EDH where it's like, that's maybe the first time that anybody's ever done that in the history of Magic. You know? Like, I don't know that for sure, but if I had to place money on it, I think I would win that bet, you know?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure I've done stuff like that too. Yeah,
those are the best.
Yeah, it's especially like the weird rules interactions, like, and especially like, I don't think any judge has had to do certain rules on XYZ before, and just I love it, man. All right, so starting to wrap up here. A few questions. It's how many EDH decks do you actually have built right now?
Oh, okay, good question. I have a whole bunch. Like, okay, I got 4, 8. 10, 12, 14. I have 15 decks assembled right now and 2 Canadian Highlander decks.
Oh, that's it? I thought you would have had more.
This is just like assembled right now. Oh, wait, I have a 16th in the other room. I have 16 decks assembled right now. Most of them are, I would say probably 10 or 11 of them are casual and 5 of them are higher power.
Okay. Interesting. Favorite Magic color? And why is it blue?
I think it's actually red. I like, my favorite color pairing is it, but I think I like the red stuff more than I like the blue stuff.
I can see that. I've noticed, like, blue's been my favorite color for a long time, but I've noticed the past couple years, Black, I've starting to really dive into Black and really like what they do. It's
Yeah.
like one of my favorite decks is my mono black Ayara sack outlet deck, and I don't know how many times I've played that deck and won, and I keep telling people, like, literally, if you keep killing Ayara, I'm not gonna win the game, and yet they don't believe me, and I'm all like, okay.
Okay, guess we'll do this then.
Oh man, but okay, so only about 16 decks. Red is your favorite color. Favorite Magic set?
Ooh, that's a good one. I am going to go a little rogue on this one. I don't think a lot of people would say this, but I really like Tempest. Tempest is the last set that I played before I took a long break from Magic.
Had some good slivers in it.
So it's got like my when I look at Tempest basic lands, especially, I think of like my childhood. That Tempest basic lands remind me of like when I was 12 playing Magic on the playground.
That's how I feel about when I look at Urza Saga basic lands.
Yeah,
just childhood right there, because that was my first set. Yeah. So yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Mirage has some really good basic lands too.
Oh yeah, they're reprinting a couple of those. Hey, the Lightning. Is it the Lightning? Is that from Mirage? No.
No. You mean the Island Lightning?
No, the Plains Lightning.
Oh, the Plains Lightning? That is...
It's maybe not Mirage. Maybe it is Mirage.
Is it Mirage or Portal? I can't remember.
I don't know. They're reprinting one of them anyway. I think it's in Modern Horizons. The Modern Horizons basic lands are reprints from popular sets.
Yeah, I know some of the islands are from Mirage and Urza Saga. I don't know some of the other lands, though. It's just like really plains and islands are like the biggest things that I know as far as the basic lands. But okay, interesting. Do you play draft a lot at all or anything? Or
not at all. I'm so bad at drafting. I have never won a draft ever.
Wow.
Like at a store, like even cubing, I have never like gone undefeated in a draft before.
So did you not really like Commander Legends?
I loved Commander Legends, but I didn't really like the draft part of it.
Oh man, that was some, and that's something that it's. When I got back into Magic back in like when I got back in and haven't quit since then, because I've gone in and out when I was a kid and all that, but as an adult I got back in at M13, like tail end of Innistrad, and I did nothing but draft. It's like if I had to give up and only play one format of Magic for the rest of my life, it'd be draft. Like I would rather play draft any time of the day than not. I still love EDH, don't get me wrong, it's fucking amazing, but there's something about draft that I absolutely love.
I prefer sealed. So what we did mostly with Commander Legends is we bought a whole bunch of boxes and we played 8-pack sealed with Commander Legends, and it was very fun. And I have done well in sealed, like pre-releases and that kind of thing. Like I did go undefeated. This is my claim to fame. Book this one in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, nice.
I went undefeated at Kaladesh pre-release sealed. 2-headed giant.
Ooh, nice. Nice. Hey, I mean, that's no small feat, especially for, it's...
Yeah. Like, I don't mind the deck building aspect of it, but I'm very bad at... One thing that has absolutely totally screwed me from playing lots of Commander is I find it really difficult to... I find it really difficult to assess cards in the context of the draft environment that they're in, and not in the context of every card in the history of Magic.
Yeah, that is definitely a tough one, because the biggest thing with any kind of limited environment is knowing all the cards in that set and knowing possibly what your opponents can and can't do.
Even doing deck building, like when I'm drafting, I'm like, I look at a 5-mana instant speed unconditional like removal spell, and I'm like, this card sucks.
Oh, that's really good.
Meanwhile, it's like the backbone of draft decks, right?
Yeah,
like,
you want that card.
So I don't have that like reaction when I'm drafting. I don't want that card. I want the cool commander cards when I'm drafting.
Oh, so well, that's where cube is like tons of fun, because especially when you get some really fun cube environments where the 5-mana removal may be really good, but this splashy card that does XYZ is really fun too.
Yeah, and a lot of those cards I'm more familiar with too, because they're like I know that like Flame Tongue Kavu is a great card. You know, I know
Yeah.
that like Lingering Souls is a great card, you know, because I have some experience playing with them in Eternal formats,
Hmm.
but like it's really difficult for me to assess those like 5 mana instant speed unconditional removal spells. I look at that and my brain just says that's bad.
Yeah, it is tough because like you said, it's on paper it's bad. Like in any constructed format, like standard or even modern, that's bad. But
Yep.
draft, that's premium, man. That's
Yeah, I feel like
premium card.
I would need to unlearn so many things that I know that like I think make me like a pretty good player in other formats. I would need to spend hours and hours and hours listening to like limited resources to unlearn that kind of stuff and learn like proper
Oh
draft card
man,
assessment.
I used to be obsessed with that podcast, especially all their set reviews. Because like I said, for the longest time, I do nothing but play draft almost every weekend for like a few years there. Like we'd play EDH, like we would draft like and then play EDH or EDH first then draft. But dude, LSV and Marshall, I used to be
Oh yeah,
obsessed with
it's
their.
good. I have listened to them a
Oh
lot, but
man,
I just can't get my head around it. It's not for me.
it's not for everybody. It's funny because I was it Monday. I just had MTG Nerd Girl on,
Oh yeah.
Brittany,
Oh, she's great. Yeah.
and she's primarily just a limited player,
Mhm.
and it's so interesting hearing her like. She's like I don't like constructed formats, like she plays them and all that stuff, but she's like I'm draft all day every day, can't get away from me. And I'm
She's
like,
probably the exact opposite of what I just
yeah.
said about like assessing cards. She's probably thinking like, "Oh man, I really want to put this 5 mana
And
instant
she's
speed
like
sword,
really
instant speed
fucking good
removal
at
spell in my
Magic.
deck." Oh yeah, and like don't get me wrong, most of these people are. I have
Yeah.
so much admiration and respect for the people that can figure this stuff out. It's just it's not me, not the way my brain is wired.
No, I tried to be a competitive player at one point. I was like, nope, can't do it. It made me
Mhm.
start hating Magic because it's just
Yeah.
it was like such a chore after a
Hmm.
while. But all right, man. So to wrap things up here, do you want to? So this episode's actually going to be coming out um July 9th. Yeah, because hold on, yeah, July 9th. So anything you want to shout out or tease in the meantime as we wrap it
Yeah,
up here?
I think by now, right around right now, I will be releasing an episode of Spike in the Mic that I actually referred to earlier in this podcast. I recorded it earlier this week. It's like June 23rd right now. It's with Sheldon Menery and Glenn Jones. We're talking about Glenn Jones being the lead commander game designer
Mm-hmm.
for Wizards of the Coast. And we are talking about the rules committee's role and the R&D's role in influencing player behavior and what we can maybe do um, to like either through card design or through the design of rules in the ban list to like change player behaviors that we don't want to encourage, like things like opportunistic tendencies and things like that, um, like the negative stuff that everybody agrees that's negative, not the like we don't want people to play stacks, but the like
Yeah.
people being generally like argumentative or antisocial and stuff like that. Can you fix that by motivating people through designing the format or designing the cards that make up the format? So it's a really interesting discussion. I'm just editing it right now. It's probably going to be out around the same time as this podcast. That's on my
Awesome.
channel over at the Spike Feeders.
Awesome. I am following you on Spotify so I can see it pop
Mhm.
up. Because I'm super into Spotify now. I listen to it all the time. Um, all right, awesome. So I'll look forward to that because I'm interested in hearing that stuff because it's like when I had Gavin on the podcast, just he freaking blew my mind with just how they even still
Kevin's
coming,
brilliant.
yeah, still coming out with Magic cards this far into
Yep.
the product's lifespan. It's like,
Gavin is brilliant and so creative and
yeah,
like you can see, and I mean you've interviewed him. I met him in person like briefly at GP Vegas 2019, and you can see the man's passion about the game from
oh yeah,
space. Like it is immediately evident to you can see it across the room when you like walk in the same room as him, you
yeah,
know.
oh yeah, for sure. So all right, awesome. Is there anything else?
No, that's about it. We're going to be doing a lot more Spec on the Mic content. Hopefully, the health orders open up soon and we can start recording some in-person gameplay. That might be a little later than this gets released, but fingers crossed.
Awesome. Yeah, hopefully. It's and my wife and I have been trying to get to Canada. Well, we were going to go to Canada last year, more by Niagara Falls and all that. But hopefully, because the borders are still friggin' closed.
The borders are still closed. Yep.
Yeah. But all right. Well, thank you again for coming on and taking time out of your day to chat with me about EDH and hell of a lot about Zelda, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on. EDH, forget it. Zelda though. Yes. No, but
I'm way more excited about Breath of the Wild 2 than I am about any Magic set. I'll tell you that much.
I'm excited about it, but I'm not like, oh my god, I can't wait to play it, because I'll be excited when they announce a release date. Like that's when I know I'll just be like, oh my god, can't wait now. Yeah. But for now, I'm just like,
believe it when I see it.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was so surprised they even showed a little bit of video of it.
Yeah,
I was like, holy shit. But all right, man.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you again for coming on. I hope you have a good night.
Thanks for having me on, and I hope you do too.
All right, thank you. Hey everybody, thank you all for watching and listening to the interview. I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did interviewing it. Yes, I'm still holding the Master Sword here because it's so badass and awesome. Like, seriously, look at some of the inscriptions here. Like just this is all leather here. Like the scabbard is all leather. This is all leather up here. I don't know if the sword itself was like, I don't know how they made the sword or anything like that. I got to look into... I gotta get my wife to tell me like who she bought the sword from, because I fucking love this thing. It's so fucking amazing. But yeah, so I hope you all enjoyed the episode. I really enjoyed having Jim on. We could have gone longer, as most of these episodes do. But I hope you all enjoyed it. Definitely let me know what you thought and felt and feel. Tell me what you feel about the episode, yes, and how and what you thought about it. Let me know. Thank you all for listening and watching. As always, you were the best, and I hope you all have a great night.